Welcome back. Let's do question 152. The diagram shows the graphs of g of x and f of x. R and S are the x-intercepts of g. T is the y-intercept of g. The graph passes through R and T. Use the graphs to determine the values of x. The values of x for which x times g of x is less than or equal to 0. Less than 0. Let me just talk about less than 0. Less than 0 means the value is negative. And then this is a product. This is a product. We are multiplying two things here. X times g of x. We can get a negative value if either x is negative and g of x is positive, or if x is positive and g of x is negative. Remember, positive times negative is equal to negative. But also there's this element of equal to 0. We have to take note of that. So now we want where x is negative and g of x is positive, and then where x is positive and g of x negative. So the graphs change their signs at the x-intercepts. That's why graphs change from being negative to positive or from being positive to negative. So we have -2 here and 0, right? This is where they change. Like if you check both graphs here, when x is less than -2, both graphs are what? Are negative because they are below the x-axis. This is our x-axis. Negative means below the x-axis. This is the x-axis. If it's below the x-axis, it's negative. If it's above the x-axis, it's positive. So both graphs, when x is less than -2, remember the number line, when you're going to the left, the numbers become smaller. When x is less than -2, both graphs are what? Are negative. Negative, negative. But now we're interested in g of x and the x values. So the x values are negative. On the left of the origin, the x values are negative. On the right of the origin, x values are positive. So now it will be negative times negative. So it will give us positive. So we don't want this region. And then now between -2 and 0, between -2 and 0, right, where's g of x? G of x is here. This is g of x. This is g of x. Is here. That's g of x is positive. So g of x is positive and x value is negative. So here it is fine because positive times negative will give us what? Will give us negative. So this is what we want. So between -2 and 0. -2 and 0. But remember, we have to include 0. So -2 is included. Okay, because at -2, g of x is 0. So we include that. Even at the origin, x is 0. So 0 times g of x, they will give us 0. So 0 is also included. Okay. Right, we come to this one. This part here, between 0 and 2. Between 0 and 2, right, where is g of x? Is above the x-axis, it's positive. The x value is also positive. To the right of the origin, x values are positive. Right, so positive times positive is positive, so we don't want that. Right, because we want less than 0 means negative. And then the last part, the x values are positive, and then g of x is what? Is below the x-axis. It's below the x-axis, so it is negative. And then this is from 2 going to the right, so x is greater than 2. But we have to include 2 because at 2 g of x is equal to 0. We want where this product will be less than or equal to 0, so we have to include the 2. This one will give us 0, and then positive and negative will give us what? A negative value. So x should be greater than or equal to 2. And then also this interval here. This is the interval we want. Then this is also what we want, right? So we can say, therefore, x times g of x will be less than or equal to 0 when x is greater than or equal to -2, but less than or equal to 0, or when x is greater than or equal to 2. That's the answer there.